This will be our first event for the No Code series, and we are glad to have you guys join us. For today's event, we are actually having Lola Ojabowale. She's the founder of Launch Pail Labs, uh, and she will just be taking us through whatever she has prepared for us, and then let's just have fun on what No Code series is, and probably a hands-on session on what No Code series is. So, yeah, Lola, you have the floor now.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you for that intro. And I'm super happy to be talking to you all. Yeah. Thanks for joining I guess it's like a 4:30 p.m. on a Saturday over there. It's 10:30 a.m. where I am, but very happy to be here with all of you. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can kick this thing off. I'm definitely excited to hear your questions and to chat about no code. Wonderful. Can everybody see my screen all right?
Yes, you can see us, man.
Awesome. Yeah. So here we are today going to be chatting about building applications without code. Before we get started, wanted to share a little bit about myself. So I'm Lola. I run a company called Pail Labs. A little bit of background about myself. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area in the U.S., had experience working with a social impact startup accelerator, ran the product and engineering team for MVPs for Equity Company. And my first foray into the world of no code was creating a tech-enabled plant-based meal planner, which was like my very, very first sort of product and startup idea. Currently, what I do, I love chatting about all the things no code. I run a company called Pail Labs. We're a digital product studio and we build our own products, work with companies, and do some investing, all with the help of no code tools. No code fellow at On Deck, scout at NDVC, and I'm based in the Atlanta, Georgia, USA area currently. And would love to stay in touch with all of you. So definitely hit me up on Twitter if you have any questions after the presentation, or if you want to be friends. My Twitter handle is there below. Before I kind of get started with sort of what I have on the agenda, would love to hear from some folks who are in the room. So like, what do you hope to get out of this workshop? And so any brave soul can unmute themselves, introduce themselves to the team, and yeah, share what they hope to get out of this. We can do like a couple. I know we have quite a few people on the call, so anybody who wants to jump in.
Hi. Okay, is the mic working?
Yes, the mic is working. Hi, John.
Hi, I'm John Akujabi. I'm a student from UI. From no code, I wish to learn about quickly creating applications without having to code, at least write lines of code. Because there was an idea I've been working on, but I've been delayed from it because of the let's say long time it takes to learn how to code, then a long time it takes to code the idea. So I'm looking forward to this helping me to build that idea.
Nice. I love it. Got an idea and want to know how to bring it to life without code. That's a great one. Anybody else want to jump in?
Hello, my name is Toluwani.
Hello. Oh, I don't think I can still hear you.
Hello, good evening, Hamadayo.
Oh, hi. How's it going? Yeah, great.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Maybe I should step down. Okay. Tolu Anime, you can continue.
All right. I don't like coding, and it was particularly interesting for me to find out that I could build apps without writing a single line of code. So that's why I'm here. So now I can build app without writing any single code.
Wonderful. Definitely in the right room. Happy to have you here.
Okay, I'm Hadidayo. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, coding has been a major challenge for me, and sometimes makes me it has been a major challenge. Sometimes it waters down my passion for creating applications and the likes. It has been a major challenge. So when I got this opportunity, when I heard about this opportunity, I just had to jump, uh, jump at it. So that's why I'm here. Just want to learn new ways of building application without having to write lines of those jargons. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. So it sounds like we've got a lot of great idea folks, some builders in the audience. So yeah, that's sounds like we'll cover most of what people are interested in during the presentation, during this workshop, but kind of what I had in mind for a agenda here is first we'll do some chatting about like what is no code. What do we mean when we say no code? Like, what is this whole no code movement? Then we'll dive into building an app without code, look at some cool examples of no code in action and how you can leverage it in your life to either build new ideas or automate workflows. And then want to make sure that we have ample time for questions. We can dig into specific use cases, or if you guys would like, because with some of these tools, you can actually build things relatively quickly. We can build an app live together. So whichever way, I guess, like the world takes us, we can go. So with all of that being said, let's get started with what's no code. So no code allows people to create applications through graphical user interfaces and configuration instead of traditional computer programming. And I know that's probably kind of a mouthful, but the way I like to think about it is with no code, you're building applications most of the time visually without having to interact with any particular programming language. That sort of is like abstracted from what you have to do. And I really like this graphic of kind of like the evolution of programming languages, because I think something that doesn't get talked about enough is I feel like sometimes in the conversation, it can seem very code versus no code, when I really think they're like almost like an extension of each other. So, you know, way back in the day when we were coding, we were interacting with machine code. You might have had to know binary. Nowadays, most engineers, a lot of engineers, certainly there's some folks who are still playing with the machine code, but we mostly interact with a lot of higher level programming languages, things that are actually starting to resemble English, or like actual language. And you don't have to interact with that like machine 0 and 1 layer. No code and low code I think are a good way to think about those tools, are that they are extensions of that. So now, instead of having to interact with any particular language, you are working with these tools and building applications visually. Also a quick note on sort of like why now. I think in the past few years, visual programming, no code has really blown up, even though like visual programming in and of itself has probably existed for decades at this point. But I think we're in a particular moment, and there are a couple of forces that I would say have combined to make that possible. Number one, software is eating the world. So this is something that Mark Andreessen, who is a venture capitalist from Andreessen Horowitz, really big venture capital firm in Silicon Valley, had said in 2011, and it is still very much the case. I think post-pandemic, post the sort of like with the coronavirus and everything moving to remote, our needs for software have even accelerated. And despite all of this need, I think the latest statistic mentioned that only like less than 1% of the world's population can code. So we've got all this demand for software and we have nowhere near the talent or ability to meet that demand with traditional software development. And then I think another really big factor has sort of merged with that to bring us to the current moment, and that is with the tools themselves. So this is a graph about a disruptive strategy framework by Clayton Christensen. He's a management thinker, and it's this idea of low-end disruption, which I think can really be used to describe the evolution of no-code tools. The point being, you know, a couple of years ago, or maybe even 5 to 10 years ago, no code was really just things like Squarespace or Wix or maybe WordPress. You could create websites, but not functional web applications yet. And with the evolution of these tools, we're actually starting to see no code being able to handle and be able to fit like a wider variety of use cases. So nowadays, we're getting to the point where you can actually create real CRUD applications being things where you're creating, reporting, updating, and deleting records, where you can have multi-user accounts and you can connect to APIs without having to write a single layer of code or a single line of code, which is pretty exciting. And then the next sort of piece. So I know I'm here talking to some master programmers, the great developers here. And so had to throw in a slide of like, why should people who do have the ability to code if they wanted to want to know about no code at all? And I think for that, this actual quote, so this is Steve Jobs in the 1990s. He actually was asked about visual programming at a conference back when visual programming was at like a much earlier stage. And I think what he said encapsulates the reason why even if you know how to develop, like knowing how to do things with no code is a superpower. So here he says, you know, the line of code that is the fastest to write, that never breaks, that doesn't need maintenance is the line you never had to write. The goal is to eliminate 80% of the code you have to write for your app. And with a lot of these tools that sort of abstract away the need to interact with any particular language, you can spend your time as a developer focusing on the things that really make your app unique and quickly whipping up the things that are more standard. So I think definitely an underrated aspect of like the no-code movement, but I think we'll probably like move to a world where it's code and no code and developers get to spend their time on the fun stuff with code and, you know, automate and no code the stuff that's just really boilerplate. So now that we've got this kind of background of no code, where we are at this no code movement and moment, wanted to touch on sort of the landscape, like what kind of tools should you check out if you're interested in building different no code applications, and have this, we'll go through kind of different options. The no code landscape is massive now. I feel like there's a new no code tool like every day. So there's certainly an overwhelming a lot of information. These are just how I personally like to think about things, but there's many other apps that are kind of fall outside of these categories. So the first sort of application with no code or kind of category of tools is something that I like to call kind of like the verticalized category. So these are going to be no code tools that are very, very specific to like a really tight use case. So for example, Mighty Networks, it's something that you can use to build communities and community platforms if you want people to have like subscriptions and sort of post and have like a kind of like a forum type application. But it's something that you will only use for communities. Like you wouldn't use Mighty Networks to create like an invoicing application. It just is not made for that use case. Similar kind of thing going on with ShareTribe. So ShareTribe, it is a no-code application that helps you build marketplaces. So if you have any idea where you want to connect sort of suppliers and buyers, say you've got a marketplace for selling really good rice, and you want to like sell it online to people who want to buy really good rice, that's something that you could use to get up to speed really quickly. And then another really popular one is Shopify. Great application. You can extend it with code and stuff, but it is absolutely like the main use case for that is you're trying to sell something online. If you were trying to build a social network, you would not like go to Shopify for those. And I will say, like, in terms of getting started, these are probably going to be like the easiest sort of uses of no code where you can whip something up really quickly. They've got a lot of strong guardrails. So there's not a lot of things that you can break with these sort of options, but they're going to be a lot less flexible than some of the kind of other things that we'll talk about later. The next is like your no-code website builders. And so these are kind of like the next generation of your like Wix and WordPresses. They let you display information really simply through like a visual interface or a drag and drop builder. Things like Doric, Card, Unicorn Platform, Squarespace. You can create a site to sort of display the basics of your idea, like in less than 30 minutes. So you can really build things very, very quickly. And then you've got some more advanced ones like Webflow, which is really great if you want to have like a very custom design. A lot of the sort of principles of Webflow are actually based on just your general CSS, HTML kind of type principles. And so, especially if you are a developer, you'll probably pick it up pretty naturally. And the really cool thing about a tool like Webflow is you can actually export the whole site as code. So if you find that there's some limitation on the platform, you've started visually, you get some really nice clean code that you can then extend in whatever way you want. And then the next one is sort of this like productivity category. So you're not really going to use these categories of apps, no-code tools to build like consumer-facing applications for the most part, but they are great kind of like glue for the internet. So if you haven't heard, Zapier is a tool. It connects a bunch of different services. So I use Zapier for a lot of things in my kind of like day-to-day. But if you have any sort of issue where you're trying to maybe every time somebody sends you an email with the word lead, you want to automatically send like a different response or send them a request on LinkedIn, actions that sort of go across multiple apps. You can do that in Zapier basically. Does somebody have a question? Oh, I thought somebody jumped off mute. Extensive studies. Yeah, I can definitely share some documentation. There is, I can absolutely share some links after this recording. And there are also some really great stuff like we can even look at Zapier, for example, in and of itself. So a lot of them will have really great things that will be helpful to get started. So, Zapier has a whole like Zap marketplace. And so let's see, one thing that they can do really easily if you have like any sort of app idea, like, or, thing you're trying to automate, like let's do Gmail. And then you literally just type in like the other kind of app that you want to link it to, like let's say LinkedIn. And you'll get a lot of different examples of some recommended workflows and things that you can try with those apps. So it's an easy way to get started. But yeah, that's a great question. I can definitely share with the group afterward, just like my cheat sheet of some cool resources and stuff, if that's helpful. And then like the last two options here, your Airtables and your Codas, they're kind of like databases 2.0. So if you like supercharge Excel documents, so if you have like anything where you're trying to like manage data and want to automate some of the managing of that data, like Airtable and Coda are going to be really great options. And then I think the last category, which is the category that I am most excited about, it's the category I play the most in, are these like web and mobile app builders that are available with no code. Can everybody hear me still? It looks like some people might be having issues with audio.
Yes, I can hear you. You're audible.
Okay, cool. Sometimes my computer does weird stuff, but
it's clear down here.
Okay, can people still see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yes, I can.
So,
Okay, cool.
if you can't see our screen, just try as much as possible to tap on our name, and then pin our screen to your mobile phone. If you can't see our screen. Yes.
Awesome. Yes, I love it. So yeah, last category, web and mobile apps. These are your like Bubbles, your Adalos, Softer, DraftBit, Thunkable. I think what's really, really cool about these, if you are a developer, is you can, and you understand things like APIs. For example, Bubble, like you can build your interface in Bubble, plug it into an API, and, have the full functionality of what that API also has. And there's also some fun things you can do by just adding a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of custom CSS, and you can do pretty much whatever you want with some of these tools. So I know that was a spitball of a ton of information. Definitely happy to pause here and ask if anybody has questions about like what this no code thing is. Yeah, anybody have any questions about what was just said? And feel free to either drop your question in the chat or jump off mute. I'll pause here for like 2 seconds to see.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Are there solutions, no code solutions for game developed games?
Ooh, yes, great question. So BuildBox is a no-code game maker. It's probably like the most robust one. And then people actually have used some of these other tools to build no-code games. So I can show you an example. But yeah, BuildBox is probably going to be the, like, if you really know So let me show you guys this. It's like pretty insane. Someone rebuilt Civilization on Webflow, and so this is completely no code. And my computer might start bugging out because it's a very, very, very big application. But I can let it load here, and then you can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was a classic role playing game. I never played Civilization, so I don't know a ton about it, but it's something that somebody was able to completely recreate with no code. So Civilization, you can get started, has tons of animation and stuff, and yeah, you can do single player, multiplayer, all sorts of things. It might even start playing some music because there's some background music. But you can do both of those. And then I've also seen make no-code games with Bubble. Probably a little bit more difficult with a tool like that, but yeah. Build box and nice question. Somebody also, I think, chat WAGOD. And I think that is some question. So some of the benefits of no code, honestly, are speed. So things that might take you months or, weeks to do with like a traditional sort of like coding stack, you can accomplish in days to maybe even hours with some of these tools. And so it's, really, I think a really great option if you're trying to make some of those really, really quick iterations, launch things quickly without code. And then somebody asked if someone can make an AI with no code. So there's actually a couple of tools now that are putting together AI and no code. So one of them is, or even just like text analysis. So one of them is like Monkey Learn. So this is specifically for text analysis. And you can build sort of like models visually and like import your data, and you don't have to do any sort of actual coding. There's another one too. It might be called Automate. I always forget the name. It's like Paragon, I think. It's Paragon. It's something like Paragon, but there are several other options too. Monkey Learn's a great one, and you can then plug it into like your no code solution. There's
Your network.
uh,
Your network.
uh, uh, and use the very like sophisticated OpenAI technology to do some wicked stuff on the back end. Nice. I love all these questions. Love them. Cool.
I has some little limitations that you can do much bigger multi-pages application. Other ones can you recommend for me that is better than that? Because I realize I can only access 3 other pages on the card.
Yeah.
Good
That's
afternoon.
that's a great question. Running really, if you're just trying to make a Webflow is probably one of the more flexible like web builders, and you can inject your own code. This is Webflow. You can inject your own code. You can do pretty much really anything as long as you're trying to make a website. It's a little bit more, I should get out of my own account. It's a little bit more less friendly if you're trying to make an actual application, so like with application functionality. In terms of, kind of doing whatever you want with an application, some really good options. The one that I play the most with is Bubble. So Bubble is super flexible. It's a little bit of a learning curve to just kind of get started with it, but you can do things like, extending the application, as I mentioned, accessing multiple pages, having user accounts, sending text messages from Bubble, all sorts of things. So that's could be a good option if you're finding that card is very limited. Softer is another really good one too. We can look at. They have ready-made templates for both websites and for web apps, and it's a little bit more flexible than Card. Card is more of like a landing page filter, so if you're trying to just like, display some information, that's it. Does somebody else have a question?
Oh, there is 25,000 bẹ́ẹ̀ níbi tó LG nǹkan gidi kọ́ wọ́n tàbí kọ́ máa ta díjẹ́kì sí kí lorúkọ ẹ̀.
Oh yeah, no worries.
You can go now.
After device that you don't necessarily have in code. Like you, for a lot of these things, like if you want to move your app off the platform, say you're building something in Card or you're building something in Bubble, you would have to rebuild the app on another platform if you wanted to leave the platform. And most of the apps do come with, they usually have like a free plan, but for like, you know, heavy usage or heavy scale, it's then turns into like a paid plan. But yeah, great question there. Awesome. So I guess now we can dive into some building an app without code, kind of like how you think about it. And I'll move through like some of this pretty quickly, but really just like with regular apps, there's a very big before kind of like planning process before you even sort of invest time, even if it is like a little bit of time to build the app, which I think is like an important point because with a lot of these solutions, it's very easy just to like build things, but depending on your goals, the question should always be like, it's not whether the idea can be built. In most instances, the answer is going to be yes, absolutely. It's whether it should be built at all. So wanted to just quickly touch on some kind of like validation frameworks. I really, really love this graphic. It's by Bram Canstein, who is an awesome person who talks about like no code and MVPs specifically. But especially as you're thinking of like exploring your ideas and like what you need in your app and like what tools might fit, really at the earliest stages, the really big assumption that you're even trying to test is should your idea exist at all? So this sort of desirability is greater than viability is, you know, sort of feasibility framework is really helpful for thinking about that. So kind of like minimum viable product is something that you'll probably be thinking a lot about as you play with your applications, but lowest effort needed to test a large assumption for a group of users. And oftentimes that very large assumption is going to be, should your idea exist at all? We'll quickly fly through this, but like another kind of graphic that I really feel like resonates. It's not about just, you know, you're trying to, maybe your final product is a car and so you offer users a wheel. It's every step at that stage of the process. You're offering an actual functional, usable product. It may not have all the functionality, but it still provides some value even at step one. And that's really possible with no code. So those are the key ingredients. And I saw like a question popped into the chat about, can you export your code? So DraftBit is another great solution that lets you build visually and you get all of the source code as well. So in that case, for this one, you can export your code. Basically, it's going to depend on the platform. Some apps will let you, some platforms won't. I think Webflow and DraftBit are probably like the biggest contenders of apps that will actually let you like export the code. But especially if you're working with like a mobile app builder, for the most part, they're handling hosting for you. So you don't have to worry about like doing the hosting or putting it on your own servers. For example, I think Bubble, everything is hosted on AWS. So pretty good hosting there. Awesome. And then sort of the next thing here, kind of moving along. So kind of in short, really your process with building an app without code is first, you're really going to spend that time defining what's the core assumption, who's your target customer, what's your test, and how are you getting feedback from your target? And then you'll select the tool that works for your MVP. I think when you're first getting started with no code, you might try a bunch of different things. And then as you start building a lot of products, like you'll probably develop a stack that works for you. For me, Bubble works for most things, so that's what I mostly play in and decide to use. So, but these are some really helpful sites for finding code, like no code tools for whatever use case. So No Code List is awesome. They have a very curated directory of a bunch of different tools, and you can search these categories by like, oh, like maybe I'm trying to do something with games, like that person previously asked. Like these are all no-code tools that you can use to build games. So it's a really helpful resource if you're trying to look for if you're trying to look for something to use for your application. Another one that I'll also point out is sideprojectstack.com. Also very awesome. Another really nice curated resource. And they actually have like a questionnaire that you can go through. Built on Typeform. This was also all built without code, that you answer like 12 questions and it will give you a recommended no-code stack that you should consider. So both really helpful options for figuring out what to build with no code. So those are kind of the two steps. And now kind of like the next section, want to just share some examples of no code in action, or we can even open it up to questions as well if any people have any other burning questions and they want to jump off mute and kind of chat about that. I know we're getting close to, I guess, the 11:30 mark. Cool. I guess we can also just look at some examples, but yeah, feel free to hop off mute and shout if you do have a question. So some examples of no code in action. So this was a product that was actually launched earlier this week by a maker, Phil Lakin. Super cool. Basically solving the problem of if you are an entrepreneur, you probably have tons of ideas. You might be buying a lot of domains of ideas. And so this very simple site was built with Card, another external service. I think it's like iwantthisname.com, and some other integrations so that when you have a domain idea, you can put your domain in here. It'll send you a reminder in a week. And this maker actually was able to, from idea to launch, make this site in less than 30 minutes. And within 24 hours, it actually got acquired. So love this example because I feel like it's a really neat example of moving quickly and how that can be enabled without code, and how you can do things super fast and can sometimes lead to really cool outcomes. Another example is this COVID-19 vaccine Texas.com site, also built by another cool maker. Her basic issue was wanting to find out more information about, or aggregate more information about like the vaccine process in her like local area. And so she whipped up this site on Webflow displaying this information. And since she shared it, it's actually gotten a lot of attention. I think it's been on multiple news sites, and even most recently was mentioned in MIT's like tech review. But it's been a very helpful, useful resource for folks who are looking for more information about like COVID-19 vaccine locations, the process, how it works. And this was all built without code, which I think is like pretty exciting and an example of like useful software there. This was the like bubble example with OpenAI that I was talking about earlier. So this person built like kind of like the consumer facing experiences on a no code builder called Bubble. And then what powers it is OpenAI's GPT-3. There's like just like what that is. GPT-3. Which folks can get access to, I think, if like you have an idea. But it's pretty sweet, like what people have been able to do with OpenAI. And this particular founder maker was able to leverage that technology, put it with Bubble, and kind of what this virtual ghostwriter is. If you have writer's block, you can kind of start writing, and then it'll provide you with like recommendations of like content ideas in like plain English, which I think is like pretty exciting and a cool application of artificial intelligence. And then I think the last one that I wanted to share, which I've already shared now, was that like civilization Webflow example, which is super exciting because like the actual civilization team probably has tens, if not hundreds of engineers working on their product. And like a no code maker was able to, rebuild that experience completely without code. So I think it's another testament to how far no code has come. And then, and those are some examples. Another really cool one is this SaaS company here. So, I'm like throwing a lot of different ones here, but it is it's a SaaS completely built without code on Bubble, simple accounting tool that, they were able to turn into like a real business with like user accounts and, being able to manage your invoicing through this platform. And it's completely without code, which I think is pretty cool. So some neat examples. Now that I think we have, I guess, like 10 minutes left, I can leave the last 10 minutes for questions. If you guys want to dive into any like no code apps on the back end, if you want to see how it looks, kind of building things with Bubble and other things, I'm happy to spend these last 10 minutes however you will desire.
Okay, so thank you for the session, Lola. That was a wonderful one. So I don't know if anyone has any question. You can just pop off your mute button and then just ask your question. Or if you're shy to
Yeah.
pop off your mute button, you can just drop it in the chat box. Yeah. So while you're at it, if you have a friend that wasn't able to attend the session, we'll be sharing a link. Once we upload the video on YouTube, we'll be sharing the link for you guys to watch through. Also, just to keep your heads up, this is actually a no-code series program. So in the coming week, we'll also be hosting someone from Bubble. I think Lola talked about Bubble. We'll be hosting someone from Bubble in the coming week to speak more on the no-code series event we're having. Also, we'll be hosting someone from Webflow as well to speak on the no-code series we'll be having. And thanks to Lola for sharing this no-code series event. It's been an awesome experience so far. So if you have any question, you can just pop off your mute button here.
Yeah. Oh, somebody asked. Oh, yeah.
Okay, hi. So, are there any open source no code solutions that can allow you to work locally?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a great question. I think a great opportunity in the no code market. It's not open source, but probably the most flexible for the price is something called AppGyver. And so it's like professional no code platform. It's completely free for as many apps so long as your company doesn't make so long as your company makes less than $10 million USD, which is probably going to be the vast majority of people, doing stuff anyway. And you can make mobile watch apps. You can integrate with APIs. So very, very helpful application. Not so much like open source, but probably the best value and probably a good tool if you are a little bit more like technically minded, because it has a little bit more of a learning curve.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great question. I saw somebody asked in the chat of something that I've worked on with Bubble. I can share some of those step by step of walking. But
I want to ask a favor.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry I came in late. I said this slide to this lecture, can it be shared?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. I can absolutely share all the slides for the lecture, so you guys can have it and do whatever you'd like.
Appreciate that, because I'm even on transit. I have to get home, study them one by one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'll be collecting the slide from Lola and then be sharing it with the group. And also I'll be uploading it when we have the video uploaded. It will be more or less like in the description section of the video as well. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and then I can even go on. Did someone jump off mute? I didn't know someone jumped off mute. But yeah, something that I was playing around with like earlier the other day is actually like a no code. I think it's a fun example of like no code mixed with code. So it was just like for the funds. But it's this, saving Google Chrome extension that lets you save apps for later. I don't think I can share this particular one, or it won't let me. But oh, here it is. So tweets for later lets you just like save tweets and like do silly things like changing the background of your like Twitter as you're viewing it. But just a simple example. I don't know if people can actually see that on my screen. It might only be like a pop-up window. But simple examples of things that you can do with just like a little bit of code, like no code and maybe even some JavaScript. So really cool things there. Oh yeah, I can put it in here. Definitely would love to connect with all of you on Twitter.
Hi, Lola.
Hello, how's it going?
Fine. No, I just want to appreciate you. The session was very interesting and I was actually laughing all through, really smiling, and gestures were so nice. I just want to say thank you for having us. Yeah, basically. I'm going to connect with you.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you for having me here. Like I always love geeking out about no code, so definitely happy to chat and yeah, definitely. Hopefully maybe in the future we can do some like walkthroughs or something of actually building some stuff, but I know we're running a little short on time. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm waiting if
Great.
anyone has any other questions to ask. If you have questions, you can just drop it in. Also, Lola, just to point out, She Code Africa, we kind of merged with She Code Africa to organize this event. She Code Africa is a female community in our campus as well, in our University of Ibadan. So we kind of like collaborated with them to organize this event. And I think that was the lead that was speaking as well. So yeah, thank you, She Code Africa, for that, for the collaboration.
Oh, nice. Oh, yes. Thank you, She Code Africa. I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, I feel like Nigeria is definitely like killing like the startup scene and like so much innovation coming from there. So yeah, no, definitely happy to chat. And if you guys run into anything and you have any questions or like want to know like what's possible here, what's possible there, run into any roadblocks, yeah, feel free to send me a DM. Happy to chat.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not seeing any question. I think at this point we'll be bringing this to a close. Okay, someone says she has a question. Please, can you just pop up mute and
Please, how can we link up to Miss Lola?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I can drop all my links here. So like I'll put my LinkedIn. You can definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. I am not as active on there. This is my
Definitely,
email.
you are going to see me on LinkedIn in a minute.
Nice. This is my email. So feel free to hit me up there. And my Twitter is
Thanks.
Hello, concerning my question,
hello, yes.
I wanted to ask, are there no code like apps that actually help in the aspect of like blockchain development, like anything relating to that?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And so Funkable actually recently like the ability to like add blockchain to like Funkable apps. And so we have a Funkable component. Funkable. Can hear you.
Is it possible for you to provide a list of the resources that you shared with us? So we could kind of like use that as a stepping block to kind of like research what's the best fit for whatever idea you might be having in your head or have written down?
Absolutely, absolutely. I can post it in I think I'm part of the WhatsApp group. I can post it in the WhatsApp group or I can email, whichever works best. But yeah, definitely can share like a list of resources, the slides, all of it. So, I knew I blew past a lot of things in this past hour. Great question.
Yeah, thank you. The WhatsApp is pretty good because I'm pretty much on that all the time. But thank you for having this session. And I had posted a previous question in terms of like, it's great that you're sharing the platforms we could use to build app, but it would be, at least for me and maybe some other people that's on the call, to actually see a walkthrough on like doing the app building step by step.
Oh yeah, definitely. Happy to share some of like those walkthroughs. If people have like a few minutes, I can even take a spin through like what the back end of something like a bubble looks like as well.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I'll do this in like 5 minutes, just showing like kind of how these things work. But test app Lola, we'll just do. But this is how Bubble kind of the Bubble interface kind of looks when you're like creating a new app. And then this is what's loading up here is kind of like the back end of behind the scenes of all the Bubble apps. And this is one particular tool. So all the other ones will look a little different. But you can choose to start with like a blank page or start with sort of some built-in templates, which is another thing that's kind of cool with a lot of these no-code tools is you can start with templates. I have my grids on, but you can also decide not to show your grid. And this is kind of how like the whole system works. And so the design tab is a like what you see is what you get editor. So if I drag something like, on the tab, maybe I want to make it like a header or something. Here's a new app. That's how it's going to pretty much appear on the page when I deploy it to live.
Please, can we use Sketchway as well?
Ooh, I don't think I've heard of Sketchway. What's that? I don't think I've heard of Sketchway. But probably some ways to add it in. But yeah, I haven't heard of Sketchway. But to make a kind of, I guess, long story short, so I can not take too much of your lovely afternoons here. This is kind of like the design editor here. And then what makes Bubble and some of these things really cool is like the workflow editor. So like, say for example, maybe I'll put like a button. I'll say like, click me, just making some stuff really simple. And I want that button to like show a pop-up. And that pop-up is going to have like an input or something. That element sort of like editor is really helpful, and you can add your own kind of styles to it. If some people have like Google Material Design and Bubble and sort of other things, like put your name, just something really simple. Kind of how it works with these is, you can start and edit a workflow from any particular button and then do things like, show this pop-up, which is really fun in the workflow section. I think what's really cool in sort of the data tab section is creating new data types. So if I wanted to like create a thing that was like a pop-up post, I can create that data type and then have like different fields. So that's where it's really helpful if you actually have like a database or programming or technical background, because then you can start thinking of like what data you're recording in your app and how you structure it. But I'm sure also in the Bubble and Webflow presentations, they'll probably go really in depth, but that's kind of how things sort of work out with those. If we wanted to deploy it live just to do something really simple, you get two versions of your app with Bubble, like a deployment, development version and a live version. And then you can, put it live, you can preview it to see things kind of like on the page and stuff. And so like, here's a new app, click me. Clicking me shows this thing. So very, very
Can we also publish our app on Bubble?
What did you say?
Can we publish our app on Bubble?
Yeah, so like Bubble handles the hosting. So like you can submit your, when you develop, like when you deploy it live, like you don't have to worry about like, now I need to like make sure I put on an AWS server or do any of those things. Like it will be live on the internet. So you can absolutely host your apps on Bubble. There's some restrictions on the free plan, but there are other things that you can do on like the paid for just getting started with the development. You can do pretty much whatever you need before you start getting users. So, great question. Awesome. Okay. then, yeah, creating a customer database for a client with no code. Airtable is great for that. You can probably even automate a lot of the like CRM things. You can also do Bubble. I've worked on like CRM applications in Bubble, but Airtable is probably going to be like the lowest lift if it's just about keeping information about clients. Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you so much, Lola. I think we will still have to host you one more time, probably for a hands-on session. Uh, Probably in the series we'll still have to call you back one more time for a hands-on session to go through maybe using Airtable or one of the no-code tools as well. But thank you so much.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah, no, thanks.
yeah,
Thanks for having me.
it's good.
Cool. Great. I love it. Yeah, have a wonderful one, everyone.
Yeah, and you too as well. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining in. Uh, Bye.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks for